you were at SeaWorld doesn't. Oh, hey, we're now live on Facebook. So
we're just talking about things while she was waiting for me to like redo. Hey, everybody. We'll run back to that after we get off, Stephanie. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Theta Healing Power Hour here with Brenda B. Bailey. And just a reminder, we do this every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. I like saying Central Standard Time versus Daylight Savings Time. But anyways, we are officially and standard time here. And again, I love it because there's something about falling back, right, with time that I just all of a sudden wake up earlier. My clock works with it better and I feel so much more efficient. That's all I'm going to say.
I would love to just stay here. Like, why do we have to stick it around all
I want to be like Arizona. That's all I'm going to say. I want us to stay. I don't want no daylight savings time or whatever. So yeah. So I know really cool people. I know influencers. I know people in the know, and I get to have them as guests here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. And then we do a little bit of theta healing work at the end. So as a reminder, I've been doing this for 14 years. I love working with people. We go beyond what's in their brain and change it at a cellular level, which just allows change to happen very quickly and easily. And now on to my featured guest. So let me tell you a little bit about her. So Stephanie Scheller is the founder of Grow Disrupt, a San Antonio-based training organization for small businesses. She's also an accomplished speaker and has been behind the scenes with more than 2,500 companies in the past 5 years. So we know she's young, right? Because she's got a lot of energy, and which has nothing to do with her expertise. We'll just say it like that. And she analyzes and addresses their sales, marketing, and systems. So she's been a TEDx speaker, a Forbes 30 Under 30 nominee, a 2020 Woman Business Owner of the Year Award recipient. So she got that one, yay. And a 2-time best-selling author, entrepreneur, coach, and trainer, and dedicated to teaching the same skills that allow her to build her business from scratch and walk away from her corporate job in less than 5 months. So welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. So we're both San Antonio gals, in case y'all didn't know that. So we're having great weather right now. That's all I'm going to say.
We are. It's gorgeous outside. It's bright blue sky, and it's beautiful to just sit out there and just let the sun and just be grateful you don't live where it snows.
Absolutely. And we're not dying of a heat stroke, which, by the way, because just so y'all know, having lived here, all my life, or not all my life, but being raised here, what I know is that we'll get I know that some people get cold snaps here in Texas. We get warm snaps, and that's coming again this weekend. It's going to be back up in the upper 80s over the weekend. So I know it sounds wonderful to those of you who are really cold right now, but I got to tell you, when it's November and it's almost Thanksgiving and you go, I'm sweating outside, it's still, even though we're from here, it doesn't make sense. So as I always kiddingly say, every Thanksgiving is a surprise. We're either going to wear shorts or we're going to wear a sweater. Or a long sleeve. We're not sure which one.
No.
So,
and you don't really know until you wake up that morning either.
Right. And we wear layers, but in a different way, like to take off kind of thing, but to add to, like they do up north.
Right.
So that y'all are going to learn something today and get some really great information. Let me ask Stephanie a few questions. We're going to get back on track. Sorry, guys. Weather's always important here in Texas. So I know, Stephanie, that you talk about the energy advantage and how time is not our most valuable asset.
Yeah.
Inquiring minds want to know. Elaborate on that.
Well, so I had this realization a few years ago. You hear people talking all the time about how your, time is not your most valuable asset, right? Or money is not your most valuable asset. This is usually what you'll hear people explain. Money is not your most valuable asset. Spend money, save time. You don't get more time. What I've come to realize is that time is not your most valuable asset either, because we've all had those evenings where you're sitting on the couch and you've got plenty of time, but you are exhausted and you can't do anything with that time. Like all you want to do is sit on the couch and veg and then go to bed and go to sleep. and we've all had those moments, weekends, days, evenings, whatever. And what I realized is that really your most valuable asset is your energy. And this means that we need to protect that energy, just like we would, cash flow. We need to invest that energy wisely, just like we would with money. We need to make sure that where we are investing our energy is producing dividends, is producing more energy. So this doesn't mean that everything you can't do anything that's high energy because you have to hoard it. Because I don't believe money is a limited resource either. There's not a finite amount of money in the world. There's more. Just check out the treasury. There's plenty more being printed. We're good. Okay. There's plenty of money.
And it's being backed by gold now too. So it's not just paper money, right?
Right. So we have more, you can get more money, you can get more energy, but the thing is you do have to expend some energy, right? So you have to, so for me, doing stuff like this gets me jazzed up, gets me energetic. I love coming on talking to people like you because it sharpens the brain. It gives you a different focus. I'll wrap up from this call and I'm going to go work on stuff. It always works that way. I wrap up and I'm like, okay, real quick. And I knock out 40 things in 10 minutes. It's fantastic.
Well,
one at a time. What?
You're welcome.
Thank you. So my thought was
hopefully what you hear from here will also inspire you to do the same. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
To our audience out there. Yes.
I think so. Here's the thing, right? So your energy, if you're listening to stuff like this, whatever you're listening to, podcasts, Facebook Lives, whatever you're joining, they need to jazz you up and give you energy too, right? Otherwise, what's the point? Why are you investing your energy there? You need to put your energy into stuff that gives you more energy. And sometimes that's chilling out. That's taking time to actually chill, do a hobby, do a relax, whatever. But we've got to start thinking about our energy as a resource, as an asset that we have to protect and invest wisely, because otherwise you end up at the end of the day, just, we've heard money can't buy you wealth. Money can't buy you happiness. Although it is easier to, cry in a Porsche than, on the side of the road. However, money can't buy you energy. You have got to protect that and look at that as your asset. So that's my soapbox.
So Stephanie, when you talk about this, just to get a little clarification, are we talking about, because I love, we always hear ROI, and one of my favorites is ROE, return on energy. And so, and she's going to quote me on that one, I'm going to tell you, but I actually got it from somebody else. But I just was like, oh, I love that, right? Because sometimes what we do, as far as what we create, there are a lot of things that it takes a lot, believe it or not, for us to be here on Facebook Live, as far as everything to get in order. It's not like we just came on and, I didn't pick up the phone yesterday and said, hey, Stephanie, can you be on my co-live? This has been in the works for 6 weeks. And it was funny because I saw Stephanie last week via Zoom, right? And she's like, I'll see you next week. And I was like, why? Because it's on my calendar.
We scheduled this so long ago.
Like the bomba, because I was like, oh my goodness. And I laughed going, oh, because it's all been taken care of. That's the deal. And so I get to work on other things, do other things. And I think, so when we're talking about that, it's looking at where we're putting our energy, which is part of time, right? Because it's where we put our time, but where we put our energy. But are you also saying as well that people need to be aware of their energy and, not, again, we don't have unlimited energy. And I think that that's what happens sometimes, especially for entrepreneurs, is that they end up getting some type of stress related disorder or something, or, a rest disorder or something like that. I don't want to label anything, but it's, because they just, just worked a lot.
Well, and just speaking from experience, I used to for a long time, I was kind of the perspective that I could push through. So whatever I was dealing with, whatever I was up against, whatever was going on, I could just push through. It would happen. It'd be fine. It would sort it out. I could, I could work harder. I would, I would work harder than anyone else. I would, be more dedicated than anyone else. I would accomplish more than, like, this was my perspective. And I remember, I don't remember exactly when it was. I do remember it was a Wednesday. And I woke up about 3 a.m. and there was a very urgent need to go to the bathroom. And I had contracted food poisoning. I've never had food poisoning in my life, never had it since, thank God. But I got food poisoning and I had to cancel all of my appointments. I couldn't even get like off of the carpet in front of the bathroom the entire day. People joke about like, I can't get out of bed. I was like, I couldn't even make it to bed. Like, it was a rough day. And it was the very first time that I had ever been so sick that I could not push myself to push through it. And I had this very sudden, sobering realization that for as smart as I am, as dedicated as I am, as disciplined as I am, at some point, if you don't let your body have the space it needs, it will completely undermine everything. Like, you don't have that control. And it's one of those things, it has to be a symbiotic relationship. You have to live and work with your body and take care of your body. And that was when I started to realize, like, okay, I have to start protecting my energy so that I can take care of, so that I can be done working by 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so that I can have the space that I need to. And it was just this huge aha moment, lying on the carpet, not able to do anything all day. It was the most miserable day of my life. And just realizing I've been going about this whole thing wrong. Oh my God. Wow.
Well, and I think that that's the deal. Like when you bring on a team, when you have, assistants that help you,
Yeah.
it makes it lovely, like for your work. But the deal is that it opens up time for self-care.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be able to work out, to be able to make meals, to be able to take a lunch break, to be able to, all of those that we don't think about all the time, but you can't continue to neglect your basic needs at the expense of your company. And believe me, I understand, because with my first company, which was like a 7-figure sales company, I was young and stupid, and I prided myself on not hiring people like other people who were in the same business as me. Like, I didn't need them. I can do that. And
Yeah.
I didn't, like, I had to hire a coach to teach me how not to do that.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
When I started my second business, because I didn't understand how to do it differently, and I wanted to, right? Because
Yeah. Because it's
with
not,
with age comes wisdom. That's all I'm going to say. So, and many other things, but that's one of the perks, right? It's like, oh, now I look back and go, oh my God, I probably could have, I would have made even more money.
well, so that's the thing. Like,
And would
and
have
this
had
is something I would
the
totally
balance.
tell younger Stephanie this. Like, you will make more money. You will be happier. Like, this year is the first full year that I've just been on straight salary. I don't have to worry about whether or not no, is it the first? No, last year I was on, this was the first year I've been on a salary and I got to give myself a raise twice. I was so excited. But I've been on salary, but like, previous years it was like, okay, so how much money is left, like, to pay Stephanie? And so my pay would be a percentage of however much money was left for years. And that's, first, we'll talk about this later, I think, but that's the opposite way of how you want to run the business. Now I take more time for myself. I rely on my team. We get more stuff done. Like, I was talking with one of my team members this morning, and I told her, I said, there are so many moving parts to the business now that I can't keep up with all of it. So the fact that you saw and addressed these two things that I completely like knew to do, but spaced on, like, that means the world to me, because it means I don't have to be everything anymore. And it's been such a process to get there, though. I mean, it's been a huge process to get there, but if people will lean into it, I promise, work smarter, protect your energy. You will make more money. You will work less hours. and you will be happier.
A better
So
quality of life. And,
yes,
because I think that is a, uh, issue, right, with entrepreneurs, is that we're former workaholics, right? And so
some of us aren't
we just
former.
decided to take, that workaholism and put it towards making our own money type deal. And we just
Right.
fall into place with that. And it's really, that, like I said, kiddingly said, I know my team handles all the aspects of everything around this production. And so when Stephanie said, I'll see you next week, that's why I just gave her a blank stare, because I don't have to worry about it. And the beautiful thing is that when you have good people, they also give you ideas and do things and go, well, we had and I'm like, oh my God, because again, my expertise isn't in a lot of areas. I know
Right.
where my expertise is, right? And it's just, there are just so many things. So, you also talk about like 5 skill sets a business owner needs to develop to grow their business.
Oh yeah. So yes, so I love this one. So I'm very much, it's kind of funny we started talking about the energy advantage because like Stephanie 4 years ago, 3 years ago would have been like, that's woo woo, like let's focus on practical skills
And
to
I've known
grow.
Stephanie that long, so I know, like she's speaking the truth here. I'm like, oh yeah, I know.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's been a long evolution to
It's
get to
a
the point where
different
I can
conversation now. We'll go.
But I do think so. When I started my business, I was like, why isn't there like a manual or a handbook or something? Because I felt like I was in so many directions and trying to learn this and this and this and do this and this and this. And I was like, I wanted something that just would simplify it down so I could have some focus. And over the years, that's what I've been searching for. And I'm sure I'll continue to, evolve and fine tune this. But what I've discovered is there's 5 skills that if a business owner will learn these skills. Now, these are outside of your functional skills. So for you, it's ThetaHealing. For a plumber, it's his plumbing craft. For me, it's event production, right? That's my functional skill. That's what I do for the
Right.
business. These are 5 skills that as a business owner, if you take the time to develop these 5 skill sets, you can have that business that everyone dreams about. That when you say, oh, I'm a business owner, and everyone else has like got images of you on a beach and you've got images of you in the office at midnight, like this is how you get to the you on the beach. So the first one is cash flow and financial management. So you have got to have your profit margins have to be set up properly. Like I've borrowed a calculation from Mike McAllowitz with the profit first concepts that I wholeheartedly espouse and teach. You need to have profit margins. The way I did things for years in the business where I got paid with whatever was left is backwards, but that's how we kind of get started. So you have to know, how do I create profit margins? And then how do I maintain it? How do I read my financial statements and all that stuff so that I can protect those margins? Profit margins, tax margins, make sure there's enough money set aside for marketing, all that stuff. The next skill set, and that is a skill set, by the way, like it's a legit skill set. The next skill set is sales. You have to be able to sell. As the business owner, like I don't care if you're going to outsource selling, you still have to be able to sell your team into doing what you want them to do. Like you're going to probably be the one who lands the whale contracts, like the big contracts. You have to be able to sell. So you have to develop sales skills. You have to develop people management skills. And I love this one because this is another one of those ones that for a long time I was like whatever, right? I don't have a team. I'm fine. And what I learned is I was a really terrible manager of myself. Like a lot of the problems I have came because I was a terrible man. I was so bad at managing myself. I didn't motivate myself properly. I didn't reward myself. I didn't communicate with myself. Like there was a lot going on that created really bad habits that have taken me now going on a year and a half of like unwinding and getting them like pulled out of my DNA because they're not healthy habits, like, eating lunch at my desk, for example, not to, call anyone out who's eating lunch at their desk right now, but
And learning something on a
right,
Facebook
right.
Live.
And
Go on.
learning,
Right.
but I have learned like that is one of the things. And some people don't need as much of a lunch break, but there was things like I reached this point where I couldn't eat unless I was working. That's not a healthy place to be, right? So there's finding that. I had to learn, one, how to manage myself, two, how to manage my team. I never lost a team member because they hated me or because it wasn't working. Like I never lost a team member supposedly because of my marketing. There, I lost team members because they got cancer or their kid got cancer or like, stuff like that. But I didn't always do a great job managing them and bringing out their best. And it wasn't until I learned how to do that for me and for them that we started to actually have that synergy. And now I don't call them employees, I call them my team, because we are a team. Like I can't do this without them, but you have to understand people and how to manage them. Number 4, thank you. Number 4 is quality controls, quality controls. So these are going to be things like you need to know how to write an SOP that works for your business, how to set up and follow KPIs. So, if you're going to track sales activity, actually tracking it across you and across other people, website traffic, whatever KPIs, whatever controls you're going to put in place to make sure things keep moving forward in the business. Understanding which KPIs and what SOPs to write and then how to manage them is a skill set in and of itself. And I think it's one that's drastically under considered, because people think I'm going to write an SOP and then it's like, that's it, it's done. But you have to manage your people to that SOP. You have to set a standard and then measure to that standard. Like, it's an ongoing process. And then the last one, and I leave this one for last because usually at this point, people are giving me really funny looks and they're like, what about marketing? And I'm like, okay, so marketing, yes, is number 5. But the reason I leave it for last is too many people pour gobs of money into marketing. And they don't get anything out of it because they don't have a proper sales system set up. They don't have their quality controls set up to tell when they're spending too much money on their marketing. They don't have a team in place to help support that marketing. Marketing is only as good as the company it represents. So unless you have the other 4 pieces in place, I don't care how good your marketing is, you're going to struggle. And that's why it's left for number 5. But that would be the 5th skill set, that if you want to be a really well-rounded business owner, those are the 5 that I tell people to build up.
Well, and I mean, you're like talking about metrics. It's like, how are you measuring your success, right? Like,
Yeah.
is it, emails opened, just to kind of give y'all some examples, right? Because she's using some acronyms and you're just like, what is KPI? What is SOP? But, return, again, people throw money like at Facebook ads, sorry, Facebook, and yet they don't measure the return on it. And yet
Right.
and then they don't play with it. Right. And that's, again, these are things why we hire people to do things that know how to do these things,
Yeah.
just to say, because I'm not a Facebook ad expert.
Yeah.
But it can, if done well,
Right.
and have a good return on investment.
And that's where you have to have that people management side, because if you're going to outsource it, you need to make sure you've hired someone who actually knows what they're talking about. The challenging part with marketing is every marketer out there is a really slick salesman. And so oftentimes they're really good at selling something they can't deliver. And I can say that because, like, that's what I did for 3 years. When I was working my corporate job, I sold marketing and it worked about 60% of the time. Like, that's not the stat I'm going to tell someone when I'm talking to them.
Right.
But, I didn't know why it didn't work. There were too many factors involved that were beyond me. So I sold the marketing. I sent it off to the team to do fulfillment. I didn't know all the rest of the factors. And so when you're going to hire someone, you've got to be careful about who you're hiring, stay on top of them and manage them well. That's the other thing that drives me nuts. People hire someone to do their marketing for them, and then they check back in 4 months later and are super pissed off because nothing's happened. And it's like, well, yeah, but you didn't do any course corrections along the way. Like, marketing is not, a car that you turn on and it self drives itself to the next location. We don't even have those yet. Sorry, Tesla. I know you're working on it.
Well, and I think that that's true too, as well, Stephanie, because the thing is that I remember somebody saying, and I went, I don't know about that. marketing is a science, right? Like I used to hear somebody say like marketing is an art. And I went, no, it's a science. Now there are different components and different things. There's a basic, right? Of what you skill set, so to speak, of what you need to know or need to do as far as marketing or really anything. But, it's not like it changes.
Right.
There are different components, there are different ways to do it, but basically you're applying the same deals and using your metrics to see whether or not it's successful. And, I always say, because it's so true, you see people throw so much money and wanting people to do things for them or that kind of thing. And I always say, one, follow your intuition. Does this feel good or not? And then two, look at somebody who's in your industry that you like.
Yeah.
And find out who's doing it for them. Figure out who's doing it for them. Because if you're seeing what you like and it looks like they're getting a return on their investment, and then you interview people, I think that sometimes people show up to contractors or people that they're going to hire and they let them interview them.
Yeah.
It's like, you want to interview them. You have an idea of what you want. And if you don't, then figure that out first. I mean, I feel like that's one of the issues that happens a lot with people. And I say this like in any area of our lives. If you're not intentional, if you don't have clarity, the likelihood of success is going to be very low. I don't care what you're doing in whatever area of your life. That's the biggest reason why people fail.
Yep.
If they weren't clear, it's like, I find that all the time. I'm sure Stephanie does too with her clients. It's like, okay, so now we're going to spaghetti marketing. You talk a lot about spaghetti marketing. What's up with that?
So now that we're talking about marketing, we'll talk about my favorite style of marketing. I'm sorry, least favorite. Well, everyone does this spaghetti marketing thing. So this whole concept came from when I was a kid growing up. So I'm half Italian, if the curly hair didn't give it away. I'm half Italian, and we'd gone to visit my Nonna one year, and she was making spaghetti for dinner, and she put the spaghetti in the pot, and she left me and my older sister in the kitchen. She said, watch this, just, don't touch it. Don't just, stir it. When the pasta's done, just telling my older sister, right, move it off the heat. Okay. And then call me and I'll come pour it out. Don't pour it out, watch the pasta. Well, so you've got, I don't remember how old we were, but we were young, like 4, 5, 6, like young kids. And, we're trying to figure out, how do you tell when the spaghetti's done? And we'd heard that if you want to know whether or not spaghetti's done, you take a piece, you take it out, you throw it against the wall, and you see if it sticks. And once it sticks, that means it's done. So you've got two little girls trotting back and forth across the kitchen. I think she was gone for maybe 8-10 minutes. But it takes you about, I don't know, 15, 20 seconds to take a piece of pasta out and throw it against the wall. So you've got me take a piece of pasta, throw it out while Sarah's going back. She gets one, and you just back and forth. By the time my Nonna came back in, there was so much pasta on the floor. She was so upset. She was like, this is not how you figure out whether or not the pasta's done. And I tell the story because it's funny, but it's also what we do with our marketing, where we try something and it didn't work. So we try something else. And didn't work, so we try something else. And didn't work, so we try something else. And didn't work, try something else. And there is, to your point, and I can see the other person's point too, right? There's a science and an art to it, right? There's science behind telling when the spaghetti's done. The thickness of the spaghetti, the heat of the water, the altitude you're cooking at, like all of these things come into play. And then you've got, the Italian Nonna who sticks her spoon in the pot, stirs it once, and goes, that's done. Right? Because they can tell by the feel, but they've done it so many times. Well, when you're not at that point where you haven't done it so many times, you have to take a piece out and test it and chew it, and then but you don't take it and throw it against the wall. The other thing to keep in mind is you cook the kind of spaghetti that's perfect for the pasta sauce you're making, right? So you're not going to cook up as a regular spaghetti to go with a fettuccine or to go with an Alfredo sauce, right? You're going to cook up a fettuccine, which is a thicker noodle that's going to have more space for the sauce to cling to. Okay. So why do I go into that? you guys are going, I didn't know I was getting a cooking lesson today. So I go into all of this because there is a science behind what does and doesn't work in cooking and in marketing, but you have to understand that science. You are going to have to try some stuff out, but the key is to limit your exposure. You aren't taking a piece of pasta out of the pot and throwing it against the wall every 20 seconds. You are taking one piece of pasta out, breaking it in half, trying a bite, and then going, okay, well, you know what? It's not done, right? I'm not throwing a whole piece and wasting against the wall. So what I want you guys to start doing is what Brenda was talking, what you were talking about earlier, right? I say you guys talking to our listeners, but like take a few minutes, interview the people in your industry, or at least look at what they're doing, and get an idea. And what I talk about is you have to have a cohesive point to your marketing. So your marketing message is what brings everything together. Okay, your marketing message is bigger than your tagline. It's the story that you're telling people. So, for Grow Disrupt, the story we're telling people is, you are a phenomenal business owner. You're incredible. You're smart. You've made it this far. You have so much going for you. We want to share some things that will help you live up to your greatest self. And that's the story behind everything. So everything we do, we look at, does this Facebook post make them feel like they're a phenomenal business owner? And here's a small tip that's going to help them perform better. Does this video make them feel like they're a phenomenal business owner? And here's a small tip that's going to help them perform a little better. That's our message, and everything we do revolves around that. The events we put on, everything revolves around this. So all of that said, stop throwing spaghetti against the wall. Stop trying stuff out just to see if it works. Start with that core piece, right? When you're building a dish, you start with the protein in mind. Okay, you don't build the dish and then you're like, I think this would go well with duck. Like most of the time you sit there and you say, okay, I've got duck breast. I'm going to build a pasta dish around duck breast. You got to do the same thing. Start with your message and then try one thing at a time and stop wasting your money on marketing, because it's putting people out of business. The only people making money off this is Facebook. Which
they just get really upset that we're like putting this on my personal time.
I know. I'm laughing because I'm like, this is we're gonna get in trouble.
Don't put me in jail because of what Stephanie's saying, Facebook. But, and the thing is that what I find also as well is that when Stephanie's talking about like that one at a time thing, then you can again see whether or not it's working. When you do so many new things at once, you can't
test. You don't know what worked.
You can't figure it out. And maybe it wasn't, and honestly, maybe it was just the one thing that you needed to do, but you can't figure that out because now you've already set it up with 5.
Right.
And that's more money and more hours and more people and more time and more energy when it would have been less had you approached it a little bit differently, right?
Yep.
So again, I always tell people, and it's like, I like to, because I have learned this from 28 years being an entrepreneur, right? This is not what people hire me to do because I don't want to do it. Like, that's not why people hire me. But I do know it. It is beneficial for me to know that. It makes me easier to work with as far as like somebody who coaches me or who contracts with me type thing. And then it allows me to be in my space, to be able to work with my clients, which is what's ideally the most important. So, and I also feel like too, I'll just say this as well, because I'm going to feel like it's probably some work that we're going to do. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
I feel like that people feel like, my website needs to be built and my this needs to be built and this needs to be all in place and I'm going to invest all of this money, and I'm not saying that but you make money and then you invest it in to go, you figure out like, what's my next step? Like when I make this
Right.
money, this is the next thing that I'm going to add into my business, that type of thing. I think, it's that all or nothing. Like people feel like I have to have, like I always kiddingly say, and I'm going to be honest with you right now, I've not had a website most of my career.
I
It's
didn't have a
either
website for
been
the
in,
first 2 years.
right. It's either been in process to be built. It's either been, and people are like, this is what makes it so legit. And they'll spend thousands of dollars to do it. And it's like, it's funny because like right now I don't have a website. I'm just going to be honest, because we moved platforms and then other things have been more important to build than the website,
Right.
that actually make money. Right.
Right.
Like, it's like, that's the deal. So it's like, so I always feel like, oh, or I don't have my proposal sheet made, or I don't have my, all of these. It's like, you don't have to, you take the first step, and then when you need it, you create it. It's
You
not like,
level up. So, here's like one of the things I so agree. I'm a recovering perfectionist. I still find myself like falling into those, like not nearly as often anymore. I've done a lot of work on this one, but I do. You see people who are like, well, I have to get a $5,000 logo built, and then I have to get this, and they spend so much money up front without proving the concept and understanding who's going to be attracted to it. So my thing, I tell pretty much everyone, I'm like, look, if it's your first website, do yourself a favor and start with a template site. Go to a place like Strikingly or Wix or Weebly. And I know web developers out there are just like crying right now. But like, start with a site that's a template site, get something up. And what's going to happen is you're going to find what is important and what isn't on the website and evolve it, rather than spending 3 to 5 grand on a website that you're going to have to completely redo a year, 2 years later. Like it's asinine. And then we convince ourselves we can't move forward until it is perfect.
right.
And that's perfection is the enemy of progress. I don't know where I heard that, but I feel like it's very fitting right here.
Well, and that's the thing too. And I'll just say this, which then Facebook will be like, thank you, Brenda. Have a business page on Facebook or in LinkedIn, right?
Right.
I mean, you can start there and
Yeah.
then move into, again, you create, and I always just like when somebody's like, well, I don't have a website. And I'm like, okay, but that doesn't mean that you don't exist,
Right. Right.
So I just, yeah, I'm writing that down because it's good. Perfection is the enemy of progress.
It's the enemy of progress. I'm wondering if I've heard that somewhere, or if I just straight up made that up on the fly. I might have. I'll have to look into that one, because if I did, I'm turning that into one of my quotes that I use all the time, because it's true. And start with a Facebook page. You can get a website up in an hour. In all honesty, like a non-educated person, you can get a website up like so fast if you desperately want one. And here's the thing. So this is what I found. Many of us, myself included for many years, and again, I've spent a lot of time working through a lot of this. So I'm just going to talk about myself here for a minute, because I don't want to make assumptions about other people. For years, I was terrified at my potential. Like, I could see where I could end up, and it was terrifying. It was so hard to face that and look at where I could go. And there was this, feeling of like, this is so heavy to carry this much potential, because what if I don't live up, right? What if I strike out and I go for this and it doesn't work? And I had to reach the point where I had to come to the realization of, what, all of these things that I'm saying I need to do, a website, a this, a that, a this, a that, a this, a that, this person's getting in my way because they aren't on the same wavelength as me. Like, all of the excuses that I allowed myself to carry for years were just my way of avoiding having to face my potential, because it scared me. And that was really hard to even come to that honest face-to-face moment of like, like a Star Wars going into the cave, like seeing your inner dark self moment. And it was, even just realizing like I'm scared of my potential, even just owning that up was so hard. But once I did, and I started to analyze, I could be like, oh, this is an excuse. And this is an excuse. And this is an excuse. Mm. And then once you recognize it's an excuse, now you have to actually do something about it.
Or not,
So,
but
or
live with that decision, and
yeah,
that's the thing. Like I have a friend who kiddingly says, and I know I say this all the time, but it's like somebody new will hear it. So again, if this is juicy, right, which it is, and if you know somebody that you feel like would benefit, like what we're saying, because this is not just about business, this is about life, guys.
yeah.
Because as an entrepreneur, your business is your life, so to speak, and they go back and forth, so tag people, share it, like, comment. We want to see that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are plenty of people that will benefit from this, or they needed to hear this today, or however that works. But I have a friend who always said that if you want to know what you need to work on, get in a relationship. And I always say, if you want to know what you need to work on, start a business.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
right?
And so that's the thing, that's why most people can't become entrepreneurs, is
Yeah.
because they can't spend that much time having to be with
With
themselves,
themselves. Could you
because
imagine if
part of
you
what
had
the
to live with
quarantine and the
yourself?
pandemic have done, that have been like, what, like I was like looking, at the beginning of the pandemic, I was seeing like all these posts and, these struggles that people were having. And I thought, oh my gosh, that was me when I first became self-employed. Like I get it, because it's
Right?
like, here I am, and like what Stephanie's talking about, managing me and, all of that. It's like, it's different. And so, that's what we're saying. Like I can have my story
Yeah.
and I can keep supporting it, but it may not get me anywhere. Right. Or I can change it, which again, super easy with Theta Healing. But and having done this for 14 years, and what Stephanie's saying, what I know to be true is that most people believe that they have a fear of failure. That's like 1%.
Yeah.
More people fear success.
Yep.
That's the deal.
Yeah.
So, again, it's that saying from Marianne Williamson, who am I type deal. But, and I wish I had it just off the top of my head to quote it, because it'd be perfect right now. So, sales,
Yes.
people struggling with sales.
Yes.
Piece of advice for the small business owner who is struggling in sales. And I'm going to say this right now, not just a small business person, but anybody. And if this is you, again, tag somebody, share it, who, when they think of sales, thinks of a used car salesman. I'll let you go from there, Stephanie. Right?
Right.
It's just, again, we sell in so many different ways,
Yeah.
and we want to make it about like, oh, I'm not a salesperson, or I don't want to do this kind of thing. But
Right.
you know,
Well, the thing is, so when you're sitting there and you're struggling, and again, just speaking from experience here, like when I was in sales for my very first job, I struggled with the idea of being a salesperson. When I got the job, I didn't realize I was being hired to be a sales rep. I totally thought that I was being hired to be just a marketing consultant. And so when I found out I was in sales and I had to be a salesperson, I had this idea in my head, and it was one of my coworkers at the time, who was a salesperson, who had this slicked back hair, the big shiny bleached teeth. He was short and he talked like this, and he's just got a deal for you, and it's just I'm gonna make this work for you. It's just gonna be so I got you. And he drove me nuts. And nothing about him felt authentic. Nothing about him felt honest. Nothing about him felt like me. And I thought I had to be that to be in sales, to be good at sales. And what I ended up coming back to is I said, I'm going to do my first. So this was my story, right? I get hired for my job in sales. My first week on the job, I close a deal worth double quota. My second week on the job, I close a deal worth triple quota. My third week on the job, I realized I'm a sales rep, not a marketing consultant, and I closed 0. Fourth week, 0. Fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, zeros. Straight goose eggs. I'm sitting here going, I got to figure something out, because if I don't, I'm going to get fired. I've never been fired in my life. I don't want to start now. I just moved to San Antonio. Like, I moved here for the job. I got to make this work. And so I just went back to what I was comfortable with doing. Was I acted like a marketing consultant, and inadvertently I fell into one of the greatest tips that you can have in sales, and that is to sell from a place of education and of compassion. And I felt my job was to go out there and share what I knew about marketing with these small business owners who had no idea how to market their business. They had a cool business idea, but they didn't know what to do to get it out there. And we don't live in a field of dreams world. This is not a you build it, they come. Like, it just doesn't work like that. I'm sorry. I know someone just had their hopes dashed. but I would say,
and I'm going to tell you that a lot more people just laughed going, oh yeah, I remember when I had that. Oh.
Right? I know. So for the person who's crying now, I'm sorry. We've all been there. We hear you. For everyone who's laughing along with me, yeah, I hear you. So my advice is to find the way of selling that works for you. You are gonna have to go and put yourself out there, and that's not super comfortable. So I have two pieces of advice. One is use a sales activity tracker. Every great sales rep I know uses an activity tracker. They track how many calls they're making, how many dials they're making, how many people they're reaching out to, how many appointments they're running, how many deals they're closing every week. Because they know that by keeping track of those numbers, they can tell whether or not they're about to hit a dry period, whether or not they are hitting enough numbers to keep their sales going and keep the momentum building. Okay. And they set goals with that activity tracker. They say, this week, I'm going to hit 250 calls. This week, I'm going to do this. And I will tell you this, we are in a downturn. Well, depending on where you are in the country, some places are dealing with severe downturns and recessions at this point. You have to work harder. You have to make more calls right now. So if you want to make money, you are going to have to make the calls. Like, you're going to have to talk to more people, because not everyone's going to be in a buying mode. Okay. There's things you can do to direct yourself so you get to the right people easier, but don't think that by making fewer calls, you're going to make more money right now. Like, it's not how it works in a downturn.
Well, and I think, right, Stephanie, and what you're saying is this is the thing, right? People, again, the story, nobody has money, so not working as hard.
Right.
Whereas that's not how it works.
No, what we end up with a greater divide. Some people are making more money. You want to be on this side. These are the people who, when things went, when stuff hit the fan, they looked at what was going on and they made a plan and they followed it and they executed and they took action, right? And they made the calls. They reached out to people. And again, do it in a way that's congruent with who you are. That's fine, but you've got to take sales action. You have got to move the business forward. And then dedicate yourself to learning one thing a day sales-wise. Read a book and just read until you learn one thing new, right? So get a sales book, read until you learn one thing new. The next day, pick up the book again, read until you learn one thing new. But just learn one thing about sales every day. By the end of the year, you'll learn 365 new things about sales. And you'll be very close to becoming a sales master. So,
well, that's the thing, is that, and I mean, just in being honest, right? I have a sales background, right? I think that's one of the things that probably, like, Stephanie and I are just like, kind of like, like one of our common denominators. So we both have sales backgrounds.
Yeah.
And selling a product is different than selling yourself.
Oh yeah.
And I struggled with that when I first started this company, and was shocked to discover this about myself, because I have been known to sell, ice to an Eskimo. It's, it's just, my father was
a different conversation.
My sister's a salesman, I mean, we've all been in sales. And again, if you like think back, you sold your mom on buying you something or doing something for you. I mean, it's not, people always think like, I'm not a salesperson. Oh, it's influencing people, but not, it's manipulating people. And I know that manipulation gets a bad deal, but it's manipulating, and it's a win-win.
Right.
thing. So it's
Right.
helping people. It's, giving them knowledge from your marketing background, or it's giving them knowledge on the background of what you're representing or who you are, so that people can make an informed decision.
Well, and one thing I talk about all the time when it comes to sales is keep in mind, people are afraid of change. It's how our brains are hardwired. Change is potentially deadly, right? That mushroom that just popped up in your yard, what if it's deadly? Like, you're hardwired not to go eat the freaking mushroom because it's new. Okay. Our brains are wired to watch out for change. If you don't believe me, walk into a room. If you smell something weird, 3 minutes later, take a big sniff. You're not going to notice it, because what happens is our brain says, this is the same. All right, I'm not going to pay attention to that anymore. We are hardwired to look for something change, new, because it could be dangerous. And so what happens a lot of times when we are selling to someone, you're selling something new. And what will happen is you get someone who backs up, who panics a little bit, who freaks out about the idea of this new thing. And like, for example, like coaching services, right? They freak out because, oh my God, I'm not going to have an excuse anymore.
Right.
Like,
I can't stay in my story. Go on.
right. Panic moment. And so they start coming up with excuses. And that's where your job, if you truly believe in what you're selling, your job is to sit there and help them see through those stories, see through those excuses, and give them the path to move forward. And that is not manipulation in the sense of taking advantage of someone. That is helping someone understand themselves better than they understand themselves, so they can live a better life with you. That's what sales is.
Drop the mic. Right. Absolutely. Drop the mic. Absolutely. And that's the thing. And that's why I feel like, what Stephanie's saying, again, there is a skill set to it. And I think that most people understand, like, being of service, giving information. I feel like that what people lack, my experience has been, of course, Stephanie has more, she actually trains people in sales, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is you don't ask for the money.
Yeah.
You don't ask them if they, and again, it doesn't look like, say, can you, do you want to give me money? It's like, would you like to join me?
Right.
Would you like to work with me? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to continue this relationship, this work relationship, this, so it's, I actually just bought a car Saturday, a new
Nice.
car at a dealership, and I had to laugh, right? Because I worked with a female, which I had already been to another dealership a month before, and I literally sat there and went, holy crap, this is like what Google warned you about, all the hidden costs that go into a contract when you're buying a car. And I just like sat there like, oh, like, what? And
Right.
I just went, I got to go. Like, I'm sorry, I have a meeting in half an hour and I need to get back home to Zoom, kind of thing.
Right.
So it took me, was busy again, buying a home, buying a car. These kind of things take time. And so I'm like, okay, when I get done with this last project, then I'll make some time. And it just kind of worked out. And I ended up working with a female salesperson
Nice.
at a different dealership. And I laughed because of how we engaged. And this was the thing. I just looked at her and said, listen, the easiest person to sell is a
Salesperson. Yeah.
Yes. Like if you,
Easiest and hardest.
don't know that. If you did not know that, let me go ahead and just open at the veil and let you know, because we sit back and when somebody's post closing us or when somebody's getting us to agree and you see the, the beauty and the expertise of what they're doing, you can't, it's hard to say no.
Well,
And again, if what you're wanting gets met, kind of thing.
right. Well, yeah. So like I was going to say, like, salespeople are the easiest and simultaneously the hardest people to close, because if you're trying to do sales wrong, you're trying to be manipulative,
Right.
you're trying to be a jerk, we will see through it and we will come up. The thing is, we know all of the things to say that are going to befuddle you, and we will make it the most. I have done this when I'm dealing with someone who's just driving me nuts and they won't get off the phone. They won't let me go. I will start pulling out every trick in my book, all the things I teach people how to handle. I start pulling them out to use on that person, because I know they're and they can't. But when someone's doing their job well, I have so much appreciation for that. And I'm one of the easiest people in the world to close.
And I always knew, like when I did trade shows,
Mm-hmm.
the person who kind of just looked at me and kind of just smiled, like while I was talking to them,
They're a
I would
salesperson.
eventually just look at them and go, "What do you do for a living?" And
Yeah.
I knew that they would tell me sales. And I'd be like, "So do you just want to write me a check now?" This was a long time ago, right? And they would be like, "Yes." Like that was the deal. Like it was
Yeah.
that easy because I
Yep.
had done my job well and they appreciated that, you know? And
Mhm.
so like with her, I just kept laughing because she kept saying, "Okay, if we do this, do you agree to it?" And I'd be like, "Yes." And she'd be like, "Okay, I'm going to write that down. And if you can put your initials there." I just thought, I know what she's doing here. And I just laughed and kind of went, okay. And I just, because again, until there's something, again, until I said no, and I did say no eventually, right? Then she would say, "Well, what is it going to take?" And
Right.
then I would tell her. And again, that's the biggest thing, is that most people don't know the answer to that question.
Mm.
Right. And
Good point.
that's the thing, is that you listen. When Stephanie was talking about the skills, like to be a sales, to do sales, it's actually being a good listener.
Mm-hmm.
Because then
At
you
its
can
heart.
hear that and you won't get the objection, or you'll already know what they're thinking, and you can address it up front. Again, that's where I say like manipulation, and not in a bad way. Again, not, like like she wasn't selling me, $1 million car, right? I had
Right.
talked about my budget. I had talked about what I wanted. That's what I said. If you meet this, and we can get it for this, we're good. And she
Right.
did,
Yep.
right? And then
Yep.
she used the great line that most salespeople do at the end of the day. And she looked at me and said, "I didn't make any money on this." And I said, "But did you win the contest? Because I know how these work." And she said, "Well, I am the number one salesperson for the month because of you."
Nice.
And I went, that's,
There
I
you
knew
go.
that, right? Like, so it, again, so let's see here.
Well, I know
Tell us
we're
the
running, we're
formula.
wrapping up
I know
on
we're going a little
time.
bit over, but tell us the formula.
Oh, yeah, the profit formula. Okay, so I totally borrowed this from, and this will be super short. I totally did borrow this from Mike. Well, borrow, steal. Mike told me I could use it, I guess. Um, if you haven't read the Mike McAllowitz book, Profit First, it's a must read. It will change your mind. But so here's what you do: you take whatever you're going to charge. So let's say you're charging $100 for, let's say you're charging $100 for a training package. Okay. So, and I'm using 100 because it's nice and easy and
Math,
round.
right?
Okay. So what you look at is you say, okay, for $100, I'll do this training package. It's a 1 hour of training plus a workbook. Okay. So you say, all right. So I need to subtract 10% of that for the profit for the company. So 10%, so minus $10 right off the bat. Subtract 15% of that is your taxes. So in all likelihood, you're never going to pay 15% of revenue for taxes. However, that said, the last thing you want is to receive a tax bill you don't have the money to pay. So 15% goes to taxes, y'all. 10% goes to commission and marketing. And that 65%, in this case, $65, is what you have left. Now that needs to cover overhead, payroll, and your cost of goods sold. So you need to look at, so let's say the workbook is $5. All right. So you now have $60 left to cover overhead and payroll. So now you have to look at what is, how much of my budget should be going to overhead, how much of my budget should be going to payroll. I'm going to pay myself for an hour's worth of work here. How much do I get paid per hour? 20 bucks, 30 bucks, 50 bucks, right? And how does that leave enough for me to pay my overhead? And when you first look at taking 10% for profit, here's the cool thing. This is where being in business gets addictive. You get 10% for profit and you get paid an hourly rate to fulfill. And all of a sudden you realize that you can just go sell stuff and keep taking that 10% for profit, and you get paid to do the fulfillment too. And now you realize I could sell something and pay someone else to do the fulfillment, and I still get my profit margin. And I get my commission because I sold it. And so now you start to become a business owner where you're like, look, now I see how the money's supposed to work here. I get a paycheck, I get a profit distribution. This is nice. That's when life really gets exciting. Okay. But start by taking your profit first. Take this stuff out first. Profit, taxes, commission. And then if the rest of it can't cover your overhead, your payroll, and your cost of goods sold, then you need to raise your rates. And if you're finding that you need to raise your rates above what the market will bear, now your job is to find a way to be worth it. And here's my warning, is that if you do have to raise your rates above where the market is, you can add stuff to be worth it, add, value adds stuff to be worth the extra money. Your sales skills will also need to level up, because you are going to have to know what you are doing in a sales conversation to close that deal, because price will always come up as an obstacle. And sitting here and telling people, well, the price is the price, isn't going to close the deal for you. You're going to have a solid answer. So fairly simple, but kind of revolutionary based on what most of us do in business.
Right. And absolutely. And this is the thing too, is that the formula that she just gave you will help you set a price.
Mm-hmm.
If you know your numbers, you can set the price.
Yep.
And that's the biggest mistake that people make, is that they just pull a number out of the air.
Right.
And they don't take anything else into consideration. So again, oh my God, like this was like business 101. And we're going to do a little bit, I know we're going a little over, but we're going to do a little bit of theta healing work on some things that, because I can do this like in 5 minutes. But I just thought that there was some really good information. I mean, and I think like if you are in business, and I feel like, again, tag, share, because sometimes we just need to hear it again.
Yeah.
Like, or we got lost in that, or we've forgotten, or we got off the path a little bit. That type of thing just happens. And that's why it's nice to listen to podcasts, read books that remind us, attend an event, that type of thing. I mean, I'll just say it right now. Stephanie does this sales, what was it, like an hour a day for like 5 days?
Oh yeah, the sales accelerator workshop. Yes, an hour a day for a week.
Accelerator workshop that was free. I don't know if she's still gonna be doing it for free in 2021. I
You'll have to
took
get
it.
on our mailing list and watch
Right.
for it. And I don't know if it's going to be free. So you'll have to wait.
Right. And I would tell you whatever she charges, it was well worth it.
Yeah.
And I laughed because I was like, oh yeah, she reminded me of some things. And I did close some things that week because of some reminders that I had gotten, or inspiration, or whatever you want to say. And or I could have been like, well, I've been doing this for, most of my life. I was born a person.
Yeah.
Girl Scouts, I'm going to tell you, right? And and would have been like, why would I want to attend Stephanie's event? Right. And again, anybody who's good at anything is constantly learning or being inspired in whatever way you choose to do that. So it's always to know that although we're experts or influencers or whatever it is that, however we want to be labeled, or however people view us, there's always room to learn more and to, master better or more. And we can always learn from everybody. Again, I always just like kind of look back when I see little kids and go, oh yeah, that's what I need to be doing in my business. When they're wanting something, like for their mom to get them something or something like that.
Right.
That was
so persistent.
I was like, why didn't I video this close? Right. Because that was beautiful. Right. And it inspires me. So there were a couple of things that were said in the conversation that, again, Stephanie, since she's the featured guest, will cue us on when to say yes. And as I always say, whenever I start to do work with anybody with theta healing, it's very respectful. You have to want it. So you need to say yes out loud and yes in the comments below in order to get the work, to understand this. So again, if you're watching the replay, because we have a ton of people who watch the replay, you can get any of it, get all the information and get the work. Just say yes, right? And in the comments, whether you're watching it live or replay. So we want to change. So we want the 3 basic beliefs. So I want an instant healing. I deserve an instant healing, and an instant healing as possible, right? Because what I do works very quickly. And if you don't say yes, then it makes it take longer, which I don't like. And I don't want you to do that. So if you would like those, this is your first time to view what we're doing. If it's not, just, get a drink of water right now. But just say yes out loud.
Yes.
So we want to change. I always look at obligations because that means we don't have a choice. Again, we can always choose to be workaholics, or we could choose to, whatever, right? That we want to do in our lives. We can choose to be in our story. But really, let's see, here are my notes here. We want to change what prevents us from being accountable to ourselves, because that's what's going to help us manage ourselves, is the accountability. And again, whether it's the metrics, like what Stephanie was talking about, she mentioned it a lot in many different ways. And that's where her accountability comes in. And that's where it comes. And we also want to change the obligation that we have to be everything, that we have to do everything.
Yeah.
We want to change that what causes us to fear our potential. So we also want to change what obligates us to stick with our story, right? Like, so it can't change at all. It's going to have to.
Yeah.
And we want to change the obligation to be a perfectionist. Mm-hmm. So if you would like those, just say yes out loud.
Yes.
And we want to forgive ourselves for doing these things, right, that haven't best served us as well. And again, and we want to change what prevents us from having awareness, because until we have awareness, we can't change anything, right? All right. So if you want those that I just added on here at the last minute, just say yes.
Yes.
Okay. So Stephanie, tell us what else we need to know. Do we have an event coming up? You've got something to share with them?
We do have an event coming up. So we have my favorite event every year is the Grow Retreat. So we do this every year. This is our logo for this year's retreat. It's all around impact. And how do you increase your impact as a business owner? How do you increase your impact with your employees, with your team, with your clients, through your marketing, in your marketplace? And we bring in speakers we're bringing in international speakers. We're bringing in speakers from Canada, all over the US, to come in. And all of these guys had to go through serious, I mean, I interviewed 40 plus speakers earlier this year trying to decide the 6 that we wanted for the Grow Retreat, because I want the speakers who have done what they're talking about, not just once, not just twice, but have done it again and again. They know this stuff inside, outside. They can teach it. They can talk with you about how to apply it in your business. It is next level networking. It is next level learning. It is 2 days of just freaking incredible. People can't believe it when they get in the room. I'm so excited because I love this event. This event fuels me all year. So if they want more information, if anyone wants any more information, you can check it out at thegrowretreat.com, like the one and only, because it's the coolest. Thegrowretreat.com, GROW, and then RETREAT.
There you go. And how can they find you, Stephanie?
Oh, Facebook is fantastic. So click on my name and then just send a friend request, and then just send me a message that says, hey, I saw you on Brenda's Go Live. Because otherwise I look at like all the requests and I'm like, I don't know who this person is. So send me a request. That's awesome. You can catch me on my website, thestephaniescheller.com, like the one and only again, thestephaniescheller.com. Or you could go to our company website, which is growdisrupt.com. That's a lot of websites. Just catch me on Facebook.
There you go. So, for me, I also have an MP3 that is 1 minute that draws money to you that's your intention. I tell people to listen to it like first thing in the morning, last thing at night. So that's in the post, as well as my Facebook group, which is Wealth Vibe Acceleration. We do a lot of things. We have like a meditation Monday and all sorts of different things. And this co-live is also posted in there to where people can get some information, get some work done with them that helps keep their vibe up. So come join the group if you'd like. Next week, we have Ona Christie Martin. She is a copywriter and she's also into a lot of other holistic. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we end up picking as her topic. But as always, thank you, Stephanie. Again, we went a little over, but it's because she and I, we like jive. We like to talk. So
We do. We're good.
we're in the zone
We
together. So.
we add a lot of value when we talk too. Like it builds. It builds.
So again, we have a YouTube channel that this will also be posted on, and it goes on a lot of different platforms, but please tag, share, like, comment, say yes. Always appreciate that. And we'll see you same time next week, everyone. Thank you.